You will have seen posters for Ad Astra everywhere. You also know that it has had some absolutely rapturous reviews. People are talking in terms of Oscar nominations, not least in terms of Brad Pitt. And so basically this is a science fiction space epic from James Gray, recently did Lost City of Z. And it's written by Gray and Ethan Gross. It says at the beginning it's set in the near future. And the film begins with Brad Pitt's character, Roy McBride, working on this absolutely terrifyingly tall antenna, which is designed to, make contact with the furthest possible reaches. And he's working on it, and there is a surge which is kind of like an electrical blast. And there is a vertiginous fall from this surge, which is a real kind of it's a great sort of starting point for the film. It's kind of grabs your attention, and it tells you that we're in this world. It's in the near future, so the technology that we haven't seen before, but it's not a million miles away. And then there is this really sort of very, very tense opening sequence. He is the son of a scientist astronaut who was part of the Lemur project, which was a project to go into space and find evidence of other life, to find whether we are indeed alone in the universe. But the Lemur project disappeared out by Neptune. And now Brad Pitt, who is the son of Tommy Lee Jones, who was the head of the Lemur project, is called in relation to both the surges and, bizarrely enough, the Lemur project. Here's a clip.
Roy, the surge seems to be the result of some kind of antimatter reaction. Now, the Lemur project was powered by that material, and your father was in charge of it. Now, we're talking about a potentially unstoppable chain reaction here.
Uncontrolled release of antimatter could ultimately threaten the stability of our entire solar system. All life could be destroyed.
Major, we would like you to send a personal message on Mars by secure laser to what we hope is the Lemur project. What is happening out there is a crisis of unknown magnitude. Now we're counting on you to help us find him. Are you with us?
Yes, I am, sir.
You hear from just that very brief line of, yes, I am, sir, completely deadpan. So the story is that Brad Pitt's character is somebody who has very buttoned up emotions. He's somebody who is, his pulse rate never goes above a certain level. He's very much like, in fact, Neil Armstrong in First Man. And he has that kind of, absolutely locked down quality. And what they're asking him to do is to go in search of the Lemur project, on which his father disappeared, but which there is some suggestion that his father may not have completely disappeared, and they want him to go to Mars so that he can send a personal message out to this sort of far outpost, which just seems, possibly to have gone rogue. You don't have to be a, scholar of literature to know, okay, fine. So what we're basically doing is Hearts of Darkness in space. And essentially the kind of the setup pitch for Ad Astra is that it's 2001 meets Apocalypse Now, in which you have the character that Brad Pitt plays going out, further and further upriver to the outer reaches of the solar system in search of a previous expedition which appears to have, gone off the grid, with which he has a very, very personal connection. This is all explained for anyone who wasn't getting it, obviously, through these internal monologues in which we hear Pitt's character saying to himself, what did he find out there? Did whatever he find out there break him, or was he broken already? So there's a lot of internal monologuing, which is also intercut with these constant psych evaluation tests, which he has to do in order to get to the next stage of each mission. He has to pass a psych evaluation test, which basically proves that he's stone cold, that he's not somebody who's becoming emotionally involved, although what they're asking him to do is become emotionally involved. Now, on the one hand, that is that's a kind of something that looks like an upmarket, cerebral science fiction picture. And from the very beginning, you can tell it looks brilliant. It's shot by Hoyt van Hoytema, and it has this really terrific visual sensibility. Brad Pitt is doing this performance, in which it's all to do with what he's not doing in terms of being emotional. And yet what we're actually getting is we're hearing the emotional constantly through this narration, which is very, very much like the narration that Martin Sheen delivers in Apocalypse Now, Saigon. And you could almost imagine Martin Sheen doing this narration. And then what you have is, whilst this kind of, serious, in inverted commas, cerebral science fiction story about a journey to the dark heart of mankind by going out to the outer reaches of the solar system is playing out, it's regularly broken up by episodes of, action, interstellar action, lunar shootouts, crazy encounters that plot spoilers, prevent me from spoiling, although I have to say that the trailer has already spoiled some of them. These strange action things that happen that appear to be much closer to the kind of the logic of Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon or any of those sort of serials that in the end ended up inspiring the original romping tone of Star Wars. And when I watched the movie, I was saying, it's bizarre because firstly, I've read some really brilliant reviews of it, and I've heard people call it a masterpiece. It isn't a masterpiece. It's a film that's very full of itself, and it is a film that has some really wonderful things. Max Richter's score, I think, is terrific. There's additional music as well, but Max Richter's score, I think, is really, really great. It looks wonderful. It looks really impressive. And it has that kind of, serious science fiction thing going on for which I am a sucker. But in terms of films about loneliness in outer space, I don't think it has the invention of something like Aniara. In terms of being that inner outer space thing that you get in Solaris, I don't think it's up there with Claire Denis' High Life, which of course starred Robert Pattinson, who was in Lot of Internal, which I thought was actually a kind of superior film. And then these sort of strange action set pieces that kind of looked like, like a different movie colliding. Now, you may have heard that there has been some debate recently about whether or not one of the second unit directors who was responsible for some of the, the action sequences, how much the thing is a singular vision, how much it is actually the film that the director absolutely wanted to make, how much it's to do with a sort of negotiation about what audiences would want and what the director would want. And I don't, I neither know nor care to speculate about what the truth behind that is. All I can say is that when you look at the movie, it looks like it's pulling in two different directions. It looks like it's going one way on this kind of, 2001-y Solaris-y Heart of Darkness thing, and then boom, it'll suddenly go over here, and it'll do a kind of bit of an action set bit, and then it'll go back to the other thing. Also, the Terrence Malick voiceovers, I am less impressed by than perhaps I was meant to be, partly because, we have heard a lot of that. I'm isolated and insulated and I have father issue stuff. We have heard it before, and I don't think that I needed to have it all verbalized. But the other thing is that behind it all, when people are talking about the films to which this owes a debt, and they've been saying Solaris 2001, and incidentally, even while I'm saying this and I'm hearing myself say it, I'm not saying it's not an enjoyable film with some really great things in. It is an enjoyable film with some really great things in and some really great set pieces and some moments of awe. But the film it owes the biggest debt to is Event Horizon. And it's funny, it's a shame that Jason isn't here anymore, because Event Horizon was made in, the 1990s, and they had it was slightly compromised towards the end of its edit when the studio needed it finished faster than it should have been finished. There was a slightly longer version that was rather more fleshed out. And the version of the film that finally came out was not the perfect embodiment of what the director had wanted. But I think that Ad Astra's biggest debt is to Event Horizon, which is a story about a spaceship going in search of another spaceship that went out to Neptune. That one was powered by a black hole, whereas the Lima project is powered by an antimatter drive. And there is a kind of Conradian thing going on about what have they discovered when they've gone out there to the outer reaches of the solar system, into the abyss, into the heart of darkness. When you go out that far, what do you actually come face to face with? So I think in the end, for me, firstly, I was slightly surprised because having seen some of the responses from other, from greater critics than I, who have literally said, this is a great masterpiece. It's not. It is a slice of entertaining but uneven hokum, whose greatest debt is to Event Horizon, which was a film that was very, very overlooked when it first came out, but has increasingly become one of the most influential science fiction pictures of the last 50 years.
I think Lost City of Z was never as good as you thought it was. But also, okay. I seem to remember in that film as well, you're getting used to this kind of explorer thing, and suddenly it goes over there and it's a World War I film. So some of the faults that I haven't seen it,
Yes, no.
but some of the things you're saying about Ad Astra, you could say about Lost City of Z.
Absolutely, and that's why I say it is perfectly possible that the film as it is was entirely, a singular, the vision of the director and his, and his co-writer, as opposed to anything else. But it is a film that has gear changes in it that looks like it's pulling in two different directions. It looks like it's trying to serve two different masters. And there is one particular sequence in it in which I literally thought, no. Come on, really? And and it did look to me like the kind of sequence which was there because somebody thought, we need a bit of spicy action now. Can you just go and put that bit in over there? And it's weird because if you have a film that is so full of its own intellectual heft, its existential angst, it just seems to me strange when you have those other sequences which basically just go, well, we're not really interested in that stuff. We're interested in, obviously it's crowd pleasing, and I don't doubt for 1 minute that it will. I mean, I like science fiction, and I like the awe and spectacle of it, and I like the way it looks, and there's much that I admire about it. But it did feel like it was explaining itself to me every step of the way, and that it was the opposite of show don't tell.